Am I the a-hole for calling the bride-to-be manipulative and awful after she treated us like servants and cash machines? A childhood friend, 32 male, decided to get married this year and has been with his significant other, 33 female, for a few years now. He changed slowly. He stopped going to soccer practice and games, only spent time at work and home, stopped seeing his family and friends, and all of us have been rather concerned about that. We talked to him and asked if everything is alright, but as he is a man, talking about his feelings and his well-being seems forced, and he normally just pushes our concerns away. We tried to meet with her as well a few times, but we could hardly get to know her. In those 4 years, even his parents only met her 3 times for less than an hour, because she is a busy person, she said. Last year, he suddenly announced that he wants to marry a significant other. They have been together for only 3 years, with the occasional breakups. After every breakup, he went back and alienated us more and more. The bride asked us some weeks ago to contribute, emphasized on perfection, dedication, and simply started to give out tasks without us even agreeing on helping out. I literally received an email from her with my tasks to complete within a deadline one day, without warning or knowing. His relatives and friends talked this over, and we agreed on helping, but it all turned out to be terrible. The wedding is over the top. She expects the groom's family to pay for everything, and even told us to chip in. A few days ago, it became ridiculously sad. I received calls from a carriage rental, a pigeon guy, and a bird rental. I didn't know this even exists. And they told me about the bride's plan to have birds placed all over, some flying through the sky while she comes in with a horse carriage. I told the groom's father about the expenses, and he simply started laughing and said that he won't pay a dime for this wedding anymore, and that they agreed on a simple wedding, not a Disney movie set. The groom's friends met for our weekly socializing and discussed what has happened, most of them being relieved and others just being happy. Suddenly, the bride came by, stormed in, and accused us of sabotaging this marriage, the wedding, and her life. After a drama class performance and lots of screaming and pretend crying, I told her that not only has she been self-centered and inconsiderate, but she's now nothing but manipulative and simply awful. I lashed out a bit about her controlling behavior regarding our groom friend, and that all of this just became ridiculous. She didn't say a word and simply left. The friend group agreed and also told the groom that they won't help anymore, if the wedding isn't reasonable, and if she doesn't start being cooperative. The groom called me up today and said I need to fix this, that I was an a-hole for being so harsh to her, and she hasn't stopped crying since then. I declined, as I think I simply told the truth. So am I the a-hole? I wouldn't spend a nickel on that wedding, or more than 60 seconds helping out. They'll be separated again in a couple of months. Not an a-hole. On another note, why would you even want to go to the wedding of 2 awful people? Take whatever time and money you would have spent on those people, and go hang out with people who are interested in being friends. Well, one awful person, and one potentially emotionally mistreated male friend who could hopefully use this as an eye-opening experience. Agreed. Save your cash. Take him on a trip in lieu of a wedding once they break up again. Not the a-hole. The groom called me up today and said I need to fix this. What you need to do to fix this mess is help him get out of this BS relationship. It's painfully obvious she's emotionally abusive. The fact that he stopped meeting you guys, his family, even his parents never saw her for more than 4 hours total in 4 years, and stopped doing what he likes, soccer I assume, is textbook behavior of victims. She, the predator, didn't want anyone to see how she was eating him away. And the fact that he's a man most certainly comes because of how she treats him, and how she would berate him, I believe. Unless he was always like this? Please clarify, Opie. Is your friend that blinded by love that he has lost his common sense? His rosy glasses are showing him the crimson flags as pinkish are just flags. Save him, not the a-hole. You can't save someone who doesn't want to save themselves. Right now, it doesn't seem like the groom is ready to be saved yet. But it's always good to let him know that if anything happens and he needs out, you will be there for him, no question asked. Not the a-hole. That's totally bridezilla crap. Your friend needs to recognize who's truly right and wrong, and fix the situation before he loses all his family and friends. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my wife to change the dress she was going to wear at my uncle's wedding? Basically the title, but here's some context. So my male 27 uncle got married a couple of weeks ago. He is the youngest of four and he's 4 years older than me, and for that we're super close. However, my wife has not been in good terms with my uncle's wife, but overall they're cordial with each other. 3 weeks prior to the wedding, she purchased a white dress which was similar to a wedding dress, silhouette style. I asked her if she was going to wear that at the wedding. She said no. She already had a yellow maxi dress for the wedding. I was relieved, otherwise we would have had a problem. While we were getting ready to go, she walked out the bedroom wearing the white dress I saw weeks ago. I told her to wait and asked why she was wearing the white dress and not the yellow one. She said she gave it to her sister since it's her style and couldn't say no because her sister begged her to borrow it for her trip. Explained that the white dress looked better and felt more comfortable, so no problem. I said of course we had a problem. Wearing white to a wedding when she's not the bride is a huge no. I told her I didn't want for us to cause drama and attention. But she got mad and said she's an adult and is responsible for her dress choice. I firmly told her as the argument got heated that I strongly believe her reasons to wear the white dress were because of her issues with my uncle's then soon-to-be wife. I suggested she stay at home and not attend if she can't get along with her, but she said it wasn't about that. Eventually, I asked her to change the dress and wear something else, something more appropriate. But she turned this into a huge argument about me treating her selfishly and basically choosing my uncle and his wife's feelings over hers, because I told her I don't want this to affect my relationship with my uncle. She got all stubborn and refused, saying she either keep the dress or not go. She chose to stay. I went to the wedding without her and I wasn't happy. Since then, she's been giving me the cold shoulder, saying I deprived her at being at the wedding by policing her looks and disregarding her feelings. I asked how she'd feel if someone showed up in a white dress at our wedding, for example. Would she be okay with that? I got no response, but all she says now is I chose my uncle and his wife's feelings over hers. Am I the a-hole? It's too close of a coincidence that she bought a white dress before and just had to give the yellow one away. Good for you for sticking up for your uncle and his bride. You potentially prevented a huge scene and saved family drama. If she genuinely wanted to go to the wedding and not have drama, changing would have been a simple request. I don't think you chose their feelings. You chose what was right and kind, because her choice would have had a negative impact on others. She's trying to manipulate the situation into being about her feelings, but this was a choice she made that unfortunately had consequences. That is on her. Your wife knows it was wrong. That's why she won't answer you when you remind her that she wouldn't be okay with it at her wedding. Not the a-hole. Also, I have a few questions for Opie. 1. How's your relationship with your uncle? You said he's 4 years older than you, so he's 31? 2. How is your wife's relationship with your uncle? 3. Has your uncle's wife given your wife any reason to not like her? You're not the a-hole, by the way. 1. You're correct about my uncle's age. We're very close and treat each other like friends. Mostly call him by his first name. Uncle is only in public. 2. My wife's relationship with my uncle was okay until my uncle's wife came along. The issues between my wife and my uncle's wife certainly impacted my uncle. Frankly, I see no reason why my wife would dislike my uncle's wife, and this answers the third question, I guess. Your wife is an a-hole and she knows it. She also knows that wearing white to another woman's wedding is not only wrong, but a clear attempt to stand up the bride and steal her moment. Assuming, of course, the wedding is in a culture where the bride wears a white dress and nobody else does, which I assume we're talking about here. More, your wife tried to power play and lost. That's going to be a problem for a long time because you chose your uncle's happiness over her desire to show up his wife. You absolutely did the right thing. You were not the a-hole. And you still lose, because your wife's mad and will likely never forget this. Maybe you want to consider this and think about whether this is a one-off or a deeper problem in her personality. If she's going to be like this your entire life, well, that's some thinking to do. Not the a-hole. Your wife was being unbelievably selfish. Does she really not understand how rude it is to wear white at a wedding when you're not the bride? I asked her a question about it, but did not get a response. I'm sure if someone did that at our wedding, she would have been furious. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my friend propose at my wedding? I, 27 female, am getting married at the end of the month, and my childhood best friend and maid of honor, 27 female, has asked me if she can propose to her girlfriend at my wedding. She says it would be nice if she could get engaged at my wedding, because she's with her girlfriend because of me and my partner, and it would be sweet to get engaged when we were celebrating our love and commitment to each other. Her girlfriend is a university friend of my partner's, and they met at our housewarming party. I told her no because it's my wedding, so she said that I was being a selfish witch, and I couldn't let her have this one good thing because I always had to make myself the center of attention. I told her no again, and that if she still wanted to propose at my wedding, she better tell me now so I can get a new maid of honor and that she's uninvited from the wedding. She ended a call, and we haven't spoken in nearly a month. My partner asked me if letting her propose at our wedding would be such a bad thing, and if I'm really willing to throw away a 20-plus year friendship over it. Most of our mutual friends are on my side, but some of them are telling me that I should let her have this. I feel guilty because I have been the more outgoing one in our friendship, so I tend to get most of the attention from other people. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I love how she thinks you're selfish for not wanting her to propose at your wedding. Like what? I'd keep her demoted and uninvited at this point. Sad, but honestly, she doesn't sound like much of a friend. Exactly. Clearly this friend likes to deflect. Uninvite your maid of honor and choose a new one. I'm guessing your friend group are always bending to her drama. Some people don't like to rock the boat, but they're just teaching her that if she pitches a fit, she can get her way. If she does come and gets engaged, please announce your pregnancy at her wedding. Because I always had to make myself the center of attention. That's pretty normal on your wedding day though. This is the day to celebrate your love with your partnership and your union. It's selfish of her to make the day about her too. Not the a-hole. I was thinking the same thing. Like, what kind of best friend is she to turn it around on Opie and gaslight her into thinking she's the a-hole? Not the a-hole at all. And find yourself another maid of honor because she ain't it. Laughing my butt off. We have a rule. If you propose at my wedding, you're getting a bill. Meaning, if my wedding cost me $8,000, you get a note in the mail from me letting you know that you owe me $2,000. That's provided I can keep my composure during. Not the a-hole. Tell your friend to get lost. My policy has been, they pay a percentage of the bill reflective of how early they proposed, but never less than 50%. An OP a few months ago had her brother-in-law proposed during the freaking ceremony. They would pay 100%. If you propose after the cake cutting, you might only pay 75% if I'm feeling generous. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for wearing white as maid of honor while my friend is the bride? My best friend Joy, 28 female, is getting married next year to her longtime partner. Recently, she started wedding planning and asked me, 29 female, to be her maid of honor. We have been friends for nearly 20 years, and needless to say, I was super excited. Joy started planning, and it's been incredibly stressful for her. I have tried my best to be as supportive and helpful where I can, going above and beyond. Daily discussions, fielding unwieldy family members, acting as a buffer sometimes. I am prefacing with this because the next part is frankly bonkers and I'm having trouble processing. Last Sunday, Joy and I met with some of our friends for lunch. We're all vaccinated at this point. Since it was the first time seeing friends in a while and we were going to a nice restaurant, I decided to dress up a little. It was pretty hot over the weekend, so I opted to wear an old, white linen dress to our gathering, one I have worn many times. I thought everything was totally fine, but I noticed Joy giving me strange looks at lunch and only talking in short responses with me. I brushed it off as stress, and when we got up to say goodbye, Joy left in a rush. When I got home, I had a bunch of angry texts from Joy, saying she was disappointed in me and couldn't believe I would try to dull her shine during the special time. I was confused, asked her to elaborate. Apparently, she was furious that I had dared to wear white while she was the bride-to-be. I was floored. I apologized, kind of, stating that I was sorry she was so upset, but that I wasn't sure how my wearing white to a casual friend's hangout was a slight on her being a bride, nor how it was taking attention away from her. She flipped out and called me all sorts of names and said she has no idea how she could have picked such an unsupportive and attention-grabbing maid of honor. I snapped a little and told her that while I respected she was getting married, that did not entitle her in a monopoly in the color white, and that while her wedding was the most important thing going on in her life, it was not the most important thing going on in other people's lives. Now, I am aware that a bride generally wears white to wedding-related events, and the guests should not. But this brunch was not wedding-related in the slightest. I feel especially sad since I feel that I have gone out of my way to help, and our past friendship has been very calm and loving. My friends are generally supportive of me. If you think I should have somehow had a foresight to see this, apparently psychic abilities are another maid of honor requirement I missed. But think I should just try to make peace since she's clearly under a lot of stress. I do feel a bit bad, especially about the comment about her wedding not being the most important thing in my life. But I'm not budging. Am I the a-hole? Okay, I read the title and thought you were talking about the wedding. And I was like, yes, duh. But a casual non-wedding related lunch? No, not the a-hole. Not even a little. Consider not being her maid of honor. Sounds like a truly hellish experience has headed your way there. I was imagining Opie asking if it was okay to wear white, because the bride picked out white bridesmaids' dresses and was worried guests would think they are all a-holes. But no, Opie's friend is just a crazy bridezilla that thinks she now has a monopoly in the color white at any and all events until her wedding, despite said events having nothing to do with her wedding at all. I hope the bride isn't attending anyone else's wedding before hers. Not the a-hole. I'm literally a bride going to be married in 2 weeks. At my own bridal shower, a bridesmaid wore an off-white summer dress. I gave 0 Fs. She looked pretty. Your friend is being a bridezilla. White at a bridal shower is pushing it. It's great that it didn't bother you. But for anyone reading this, just stay away from white at wedding-related events in the West. It's not worth the potential hurt and drama, and there are plenty of other colors to choose from. White is flattering for very few people anyway. Not the a-hole. So she expects for no one to be allowed to wear white around her until she gets married next year? I would buy a few white pieces just to spite her. This is the second update of the story about the young girl who was excluded and uninvited from her parents' wedding. Link in the description for the first part of this saga. Now for the update. Sorry for not having re-updated sooner or commented. As you can imagine if you've seen my last posts, it's been a busy week to say the least. There's been a lot of people messaging me and commenting on the post, and I haven't had a time to answer to one until today, and I'm sorry for that. You all have been so helpful and caring for me and my story, and it's been truly eye-opening and terrifying to see how many people have gone through similar stories of neglect and abuse. And I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your day to send some kind words to this internet stranger. This update will be long, so sorry for that. I'm just going to continue where I left off. So my grandma called me to tell me she was coming here to see me and help me out. I was very stressed about it, because my grandma has a very hard time traveling, so for her to take this trip meant that she would be under enormous stress, and I felt responsible for her since I was the one that called her. She arrived early Monday morning with my uncle and I went to get her at the airport. Not gonna lie, it was a very intense and emotional moment, and as soon as I saw her, I ran to her arms and broke down sobbing. I don't even know if I was able to tell her anything at that moment because of how hard I was crying, and I had so many things to say. Thank you for coming, for being so good to me, for having my back. I'm sorry I have made you take this trip. I feel awful at home. I don't know if my parents love me, but I know you do. Am I an affair child? I truly was hit with all of this, plus the guilt and the anxiety all at once when I saw her. But she held me tight in her arms, telling me everything's going to be okay. My uncle hugged us as well. I don't know how long we stayed like this, but it must have been a while until my uncle told me we should get going. We grabbed a cab and went to their hotel. My grandma had teary eyes and I could feel her breathing heavily, which scared me, but she kept hugging me and smiling all the way. She had reserved a double room so I could stay with her for these days, and once they were settled in and I was more calm, we sat down and I poured everything out for them. The years of neglect and the emotional abuse, how I was feeling miserable after the trip but also for years now, how my parents have been trying to make me feel guilty for all of this that has happened, how I was scared about my future, but my number one priority at the moment now was to move out of that house, even at the expense of my schoolwork. How I have made arrangements to move in with my friend and I was looking for a job. I told them about this post and how some people thought I might be an affair child and that I was beginning to question that as well. It was a lot, and I could tell they were both really affected by what I was saying, but they kept comforting me and making me feel safe to open up to them. After I unloaded all my concerns with them, my grandma reassured me that I had nothing to worry about anymore and that she would be here for me always. First of all, she reassured me that I was not an affair child and that both my parents were thrilled when my mother got pregnant with me, and that she knew the ultimate deal breaker for my mom was cheating, and she believed it was the same for my father. Apparently, the favoritism began showing when I was around 3 to 4 years old, when my parents were constantly complaining about having a young kid in the house. And they were bothered because they could take my older siblings to their stuff but not me, and I was also very shy and a bit of a crybaby, which they had no patience with, and made me very different from my siblings. She told me that she knew that my parents had saved more than enough for my college. They're really well off, so that had never been a concern for me until now, thinking they might pull the funds away from me for my education, but that if they tried to not pay for my schooling, she would take care of it, and that she just wouldn't let me drop out because of money concerns. She also told me she would help me with rent and an allowance to move out. She was very generous, and I thanked her for it all, but I also told her that this experience had been eye-opening, in the sense that I never realized how privileged I had been economically all my life. For all of their faults, my parents have pampered me money-wise all my life. I went to private school. I have a rather large monthly allowance. I've had a card for years now, and they have never objected to any of my expenses. Seeing the stories here, I realized how good I've had it so far, and how being dependent on them all my life made me so exposed to losing everything. I want to be independent now, not just from my parents but from everyone. I feel like I need to learn to stand up on my own. Writing this and having just read all the stories of people in truly awful situations makes me feel like I've been a spoiled brat all my life, to be honest. She insisted on me accepting the help until I don't need it anymore, and I accepted that. But I still will look for a job and try to make it out on my own. We relaxed for a while in the hotel because we were all exhausted from the morning, but in the afternoon, we grabbed a cab and went to my house. My parents were extremely surprised to see my grandma and uncle with me when I entered the door. But before they could say anything, my grandma told me to go pack all my essentials while they talked to them. I rushed upstairs and I could hear my grandma and uncle berating my parents for all that they had put me through. At first, I also heard my parents trying to defend themselves, but eventually they quieted down. When I came downstairs with 2 suitcases and my backpack full to the brim with everything important that I had in my room, they were all in the living room. My father was beet red and my mother was sobbing like a child. And when she saw me, she extended her arms in my direction saying she was sorry, but I just said, "Save it," with the coldest tone I could muster. My dad said that I didn't have to be a jerk, to which both my uncle and grandma told him to shut up. I left the house at that moment and waited for the cab outside. In the hotel, my grandma reassured me that I wouldn't have to go back to them, and that they told her my college tuition was never in question for them, and that they had planned to throw me an extravagant birthday party to make up for the wedding mess, and were going to be giving me a car as an apology for everything. But my grandma was having none of that BS, because it was pretty obvious to her that they were only trying to save face, and they were coming up with these things on the fly, and that a party and a car would not make up for all that they have put me through. Apparently, the moment that broke my mother was when she told her that I had even questioned my paternity, and she started crying then. My grandma told her that what else could they expect when they had excluded me repeatedly from all family events since I was a child. She told me that she would make sure they made the payments to my school, unless I preferred to completely cut ties with them and have her pay until I can pay myself, and I asked her to do that. I felt bad because I feel like it's not her responsibility.
but I truly don't want anything else from my parents anymore. And although my grandma is pretty well off herself, she's not as wealthy as my parents. But she reassured me that everything is all right, and that everything going to me would be taken away from my mom's inheritance. So the next day, we went with my friend, her parents, and grandma to the studio where we were planning to move, and immediately upon arriving, my grandma said, "Absolutely not." I knew from the pictures that the studio was very, very small and dirty, but we saw water damage and mold in the bathroom and kitchenette, and there was also rust in the little old appliances. I knew all of this beforehand, but I figured I could live with that, at least for a while. But the thing that the adults pointed out that actually made me and my friend change our minds was the fact that the studio was street level in a bad neighborhood, in a building that didn't seem particularly safe, and had bullet holes on the walls, which I didn't even know what those were until my friend's dad pointed it out. So Grandma and my friend's parents said they would look for an apartment for us in a better location and they'd help cover the costs. Both my friend and I want to be independent, but we realized that with our most likely minimum wage jobs in such a high demand area, we won't be able to find anything better on our own. So the plan is, we're going to look for a 2-bedroom apartment, and me and my friend are going to pay what we had previously planned for the studio, and our parents and my grandma will cover the difference. I know it's still quite spoiled of me to expect that help from my grandma, but after seeing the studio in person, I truly wouldn't have felt safe there. My friend's parents, who were somewhat aware of what I was going through, told me that I could move in with them until we find a nice apartment, to which I'm extremely grateful since Grandma's going back in a couple of days and I've been staying in the hotel with her ever since. Apparently, my friend, her parents, and my grandma spoke about this before coming to me to make sure I had some safe place to stay until we move into the apartment, which is still to be found. I teared up a little as I thanked them, seeing how people were rallying behind me to offer help. Since then, I've been moving some of the stuff I had left at my parents' and setting my space in my friends'. My mom keeps crying and apologizing every time I go back, and even my father has said sorry, but I remain distant and cold towards them. My sister called and said that our mother was a mess, and that I was a prick for what I had done, but before she could say anything else, I hanged up the phone and blocked her. I was going to block my brother as well when I saw that he had sent me a very long message apologizing again and again for all that he has done to me, and for not realizing our parents were treating me so poorly. He says he's been doing a lot of self-reflection on the days since Grandma called and realized that he had been in the wrong for assuming that I wasn't on the trip because I wouldn't want to go, and for just allowing my parents to exclude me for all those years. I sent a brief reply thanking him for his words, but telling him I need space and I was not ready to accept his apology. I feel like he might be genuine because he has never been nasty to me the way my sister has, just aloof towards me, but I also feel like I need to keep him away for the moment. Also, keeping a bridge up with my family feels like the right thing to do right now that everything is so fresh. Maybe in the future he will show me he's just as nasty as everyone else and I block him. But as long as he respects my boundaries, I feel better not cutting him off completely. I've also made an appointment with a therapist who specializes in neglected teens, and I have my first preliminary visit next week. Again funded by my grandma, which makes me feel ever more eager to find a job ASAP to take the burden off of her, even if she tells me time and time again she is happy to do all of this for me. That's where things stand right now. I don't know if I'll update again, maybe when I start classes or move to the apartment. But right now, I'm just trying to enjoy some time with my grandma and my uncle and learn to grow and get rid of these feelings of guilt and depression that have been plaguing me for so long. I want to thank once again all of this community for being so nice and helpful to me, and all of you who have messaged me with your own personal stories of getting kicked out or having to learn how to make it on your own at a too early age. You've helped me feel a lot less alone and made me realize that things can get better if I work hard for it. I feel kind of spoiled for having such an amazing support system on my grandma, uncles, and my friend, but you all guys are right. Reaching out has been the absolute best decision I could have taken. And opening up about my feelings to those who love me and to all of you internet friends has absolutely saved me. So thank you. Really, I'm more grateful than words can ever tell. Now for some comments. This tale so far has been one where all I can say is, "Go Grandma!" Wish I had her on my side. Mine crucified me. I really hope the next update is one of reconciliation and family coming together, as I am so burnt out with the nastiness of things like this. Wishing you only the best, Opie. I'm curious, when you've gone back to collect things, what exactly have your parents been saying? You mentioned they were apologizing, but is it more along the lines of, "I'm sorry, forgive me," or are they specifically saying, "I'm sorry for XYZ"? I'm just trying to figure out if they're apologizing because they were called out by your grandma, or if they genuinely recognize their own mistreatment. It may not matter right now, but understanding this could be important if there is any hope of salvaging the relationship in the future. My mother has been crying every time I've gone there, and just saying I'm sorry over and over again. But I haven't had a conversation with her, so she hasn't mentioned specifics. But I also haven't given her a chance. My father has been mostly silent, staring at me whenever I come and go, but when he apologized, it was more along the lines of, "I'm sorry for everything," than bringing any wrongdoing for his part in anything. I don't know if they are shocked right now by everything that's happening and haven't had time to process. I myself feel overwhelmed. Or if they don't think they've done anything wrong and are just acting for grandma. I don't know myself, so I can't really answer. Last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my parents out and saying this is why I was so messed up as a kid? I had my parents in their 60s over for dinner this weekend, and after, my daughter 10 asked if she could play us a song she had been practicing on her keyboard. She gets lessons. It wasn't perfect. A few missed notes, a couple pauses, but she did really well. She looked up at the end, massive smile, and I started clapping. And my parents started freaking laughing. Not just a little chuckle, a massive freaking belly laugh. Them both. My mom asked if it was her first time playing it, and my dad said it had to have been. It all could have played that better. It was like my daughter was shrinking on the spot, and she looked down and said, "No, I've had 2 lessons, but doing it with 2 hands is hard." And they just laughed even freaking harder. I just stood up, took their cups, and said leave. Now, my mom tried to say about how they hadn't finished their drinks, they wanted to hear another song, etc. And I just said, "Get your stuff and get the heck out of my house right now." My dad started doing this huffing thing he does when someone dares to speak up to him. And my mom said that there was no need to be like this, that I can't protect her all the time, and she's preparing my daughter for the real world. I said, it's not teaching the real world, they're just nasty little bullies picking on children. And crap like this was why I was so messed up as a kid. Now leave. They got their stuff and left. I sat with my daughter and explained how proud of her I was and how well she was doing. To ignore them, they were just being cruel because they don't know any other way to be, and asked if she could please play it again, which she did. On the Sunday, I messaged and said that until they can behave like decent human beings, that we're taking a break away from them. My dad replied that it was my choice, but he didn't realize he raised me to be so precious. Now, my lovely brown-nosing golden child of his sister is getting involved. She phoned me today with my parents' versions of events, telling me I was a nasty piece of work and should never speak to my parents that way. That I'm wrapping my child in cotton wool and blah blah blah. I just told her to go F herself and hung up. I'm not asking if I am in the wrong for standing up for my daughter. I'll always do that. But I did go pretty 0 to 100. I kicked them out straight away. I swore at them and in front of my daughter. I did raise my voice at the end when I said leave. I was and still am angry. I don't think I'd even accept an apology from them at this point. This behavior isn't new, it's decades old. But this is the first time it affected my daughter. Did I go too far? React too much? Should I have tried to be calmer? Talk it out? I don't know. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Lots of people think I'm a mom. Nope. Single dad. Not the a-hole. Your daughter is never going to forget you standing up for her. Not a-hole. Absolutely correct. She'll see you as an ally in life now. She'll also realize that it's okay to not accept people being awful to you. 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up for your parenting. Yes, Opie is not the a-hole. You stood up for your daughter and protected her from cruel, unnecessary comments. Your reaction was wrong, but it's understandable given your parents' long history of hurtful behavior. You're breaking the cycle and prioritizing your daughter's well-being. There's no need to tolerate that kind of treatment, especially when it impacts your child. Not the a-hole. You are correct. They are just nasty little bullies picking on children. What normal human would belittle a child's attempt to perform for them? I know 3 people who never need to darken your door again. It was how they always were. Anything I did while growing up was picked at or laughed at. I couldn't let my daughter feel how I did. The world is only as cruel as the people you're with. You're making the cruelty they're supposedly preparing her for. I'm really happy for you that you recognized what was happening and stood up for your daughter.
Update. I-50 female told my daughter 24 female that I won't attend her wedding if her biological father is there, but now she says I'm being stuck in the past. Original post. For some context, about 24 years ago, I was violated by a close friend of mine and got pregnant by the encounter. I was inconsolable for months after the event. To make matters worse, I found out that I was pregnant at about 20 weeks, and where I lived at a time it was illegal to terminate after the first trimester. My husband had really been my rock and my support during that time, and I do not know how it would have ended up if not for him. He said that I could put it up for adoption, or I could keep the child and he would raise it like our other children. I decided to not give it up for adoption, but raising the kid was hard. I'm half Polish and half German, and he is half German and half Russian. We both have pale skin, light hair, and blue eyes, as well as being fairly tall. I'm about 178 centimeters or around 5'10", and he's 191 centimeters or about 6'3". However, our daughter Luna is about 160 centimeters or 5'3", has dark hair and a brown complexion like her biological father. I often heard snide remarks about me being an unfaithful wife because it was obvious that she was not my husband's child. It was especially hard for me when Luna was young, because she looked so much like her dad. My husband took care of my daughter most of the time, since I had bad flashbacks whenever I saw her face from when I was violated. As she grew up, it died down a bit, but I would still get these horrible panic attacks when I saw her wearing boys' clothes and short hair. Since I was prone to having panic attacks, Luna ended up being closer to my husband than she was to me. Also, she often ended up getting a little more than her siblings from my husband as some sort of compensation because of me. We never told her that she was the product of a non-consensual act, because I was too ashamed and my husband did not want her feeling different from her siblings. I often told her that me and her biological father got into an altercation but never spoke to one another ever again. About 2 years ago, she got one of those DNA test items and found out she had a relative in the system. Said relative got Luna in touch with her bi-dad, and they started talking despite my protests. He apparently wanted to speak to me about something he wanted to tell me, so Luna attempted to persuade me to speak with him. I made her aware that me and her father shouldn't ever be in the same room together. Now, Luna's getting married to a lovely young man. Some of the COVID restrictions have been lifted, so she's able to have a decent-sized wedding. The original plan was to have my husband walk her down the aisle, but he had gotten into a bad accident, leaving him in a wheelchair until his legs are strong enough to support his weight again. However, this is not her idea of a picture-perfect wedding day, so she invited her biological father to have the honor of being the bride's father. Her wedding invitation not only invited my offender, but she totally disrespected the man who raised her. Although I or a bridesmaid could have pushed him down the aisle, she thinks it would not fit the vibe of the wedding. My husband looked so shocked and upset that she would even think of this, but I was furious. I have a visceral hate for that man, and I let her know that I would not be anywhere near him. She told me that this is what she wants and there's no changing her mind, so I told her I will not be attending if he's there. She got upset and told me that I shouldn't hang on to the past, but I laid it into her that she doesn't know what happened between me and her biological father, so she shouldn't stick her nose where it doesn't belong. Though I feel terrible about what I said and how I said it, and I can't be blamed for her being born or not knowing what happened since I never told her, I still feel as though my wishes should be respected if I say I don't want to be in the same room as someone. I'm now okay with her contacting her father, I just do not want anything to do with him. Also, it's rude to replace your father with another man who you've barely known for 2 years because of something he couldn't control. Can anyone offer me a perspective that I am not catching? Has anyone ever dealt with this, and if so, how? Now for the top advice before reading the update. You need to tell her how she was conceived. You did her a disservice by concealing that from her and allowing her to have a relationship with an offender. Now that offender has obviously fed her a narrative that paints him in a convenient light. Who knows what else that man could do? Tell her immediately. She should know that a picture-perfect wedding she wants will forever be marred by having him there. If after telling her she sticks to her guns, let her know you won't have a relationship with someone who so easily sides with someone like that. I was conceived from my father violating my mother. I would never expect my mother to see my father at all. You need to tell her. It's her business as well as yours. Also, I didn't discover the truth of my conception until I was roughly your daughter's age. It took some processing, but I've moved on. It's part of my story as it's part of your daughter's. It's time to stop lying to her. Frankly, you should have put her up for adoption the second you started having panic attacks around her. She's a grown 24-year adult. There is no reason for her to not know her bi-dad violated you. And now for the update. Before I get started on the updates, I have a few things I want to address. A lot of people have questioned me on why I did not tell my daughter that she was a product of a crime. The only answer is that I was ashamed of myself. For some context, before I got married to my husband, I actually was very close friends with my offender. We grew up together in a small community, and our families were close. Our parents even wanted us to be together. He was always interested in me, but I didn't give him a chance until university. I broke it off with him and started dating my husband, but I never cut him off because we were very close. He invited me over to drink. This was normal for us. And when I started getting a bit tipsy, he violated me. I was very traumatized by the situation and tried to get him jailed, but I couldn't. He had a very good reputation, so everyone believed him, even my own mother, when he said I willingly came over and did it with him. I eventually stopped pursuing the case because of the social pressure, which only got worse when I found out I was pregnant. I eventually left the place with my husband and kids to live somewhere else. After I gave birth, my husband suggested therapy, but I was scared of being judged again, so I decided to bury it and try to forget about it. I just realized now that it was the worst way to go about this, but it's the only way I knew how to, honestly. Now on to the update. After reading all the advice I'd gotten, I decided that I should stop running away and tell her everything. I called her to come over and she did. I first apologized for yelling at her for her suggestion, because in her mind it was an innocent suggestion. I told her that I wasn't angry at her, but at how fast she was willing to replace her father because he was in a wheelchair, and that anger was compounded because she brought up her genetic father. I apologized again for acting childish and not like an adult. She asked me why I'm so against her genetic father being in the same vicinity as I am, and I just told her everything, from our initial friendship to her forced conception. She didn't believe me, like some of you predicted, but I can get a copy of the records of the court case and offered them to her if she needed a look. She looked stunned, like she wanted to believe me, but couldn't. I apologized for keeping all this from her because I didn't know how to bring it up. She told me she didn't believe me and would confirm with her genetic father, so I told her to take the time she needed to process all this. Later that day, she came again, crying and apologizing for not believing me. I held her and cried and apologized too. It was kind of therapeutic. We had a long chat and I did feel closer to her. When we were done, she said she wanted to take me out to a surprise to help me feel better in a couple of days, which I happily agreed to. I went to see her yesterday in this little restaurant with a patio that had a private pay-for-use area for a maximum of 4 people due to COVID. She ran up to me and gave me a hug. Then she led me to the patio, where her biological father stood. She told me he was here to apologize and start my healing journey. I just wanted to leave, but he grabbed my hand, and all those memories I tried to repress just came back out. I started having a panic attack and lost my balance, to which she tried to help me keep my balance, which worsened everything. I honestly don't remember how I left, but I ended up in my car just sobbing. I called my elder son to pick me up because I was not fit to drive at that moment. Today my daughter called me upset that I ruined her surprise, but I was extremely upset with her. I asked her why she did that when she knows everything that happened between me and him, and she tried to use the excuse of my healing journey, but I wasn't having it. She admitted that she wanted me to get used to him because he's gonna be walking her down the aisle along with my husband, and we'll be doing the daddy-daughter dance. I told her that while I loved her and respect her decision to be with him, I am not willing to be anywhere he is. She started complaining about how she wants all her family to be there, and I'm still not forgiving, but I hung up the phone. My husband is aware of everything and stands by me if not going to her wedding. But I don't want this. If my other children were to know, they would stand by me and tell the rest of their extended family, which is going to lead to my daughter getting disowned by the family. There is no need to give me advice on this because I will be seeking professional aid. Anyways, one good thing to come out of this is that I'm finally confident enough to seek therapy. Thank you for listening to my venting and for commenting on my last post. Happy holidays! I hope you enjoy it with those who love you. WTF. Honestly, same. Daughter checked all requisites of villainy. Never met a daughter, but her entire existence infuriates me right now. It baffles me that in some twisted way, she excused, condoned, accepted, doesn't care that the assault happened. Can't even find a right word, but it was selfish of her to ambush you with that horrible person. Sending virtual boosters and support to OP after being hit with a hurricane of an event. Seriously, what a self-centered little see you next Tuesday. What a horrible daughter. No offense. But at least you have other people in your life with warmer hearts. I think the same. Only a little piece of trash can think that is a good idea to forgive an offender for her selfish wants. I know that she's her daughter, but I'll cut her off if it was me. This is a lot for you to deal with. Virtual hugs from an internet stranger. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of this. My heart goes out to you. Question, if I may, is your husband going to the wedding? No, my husband is very angry with her at the moment. Despite his injury, he's been constantly checking on me to see if I'm alright. I honestly love that man, and I seriously doubt that I would be alive if it weren't for him. I may be way off here, but your kids and the rest of your family deserve to know the truth. She deserves to be disowned. You have suffered enough for her. If I was your child or a family member, I would want the chance to do right by you. Also, she may tell them regardless. It's best they hear it from you before she spins the story to make her seem like the reasonable one. Now for the last story. Update. My daughter ran away at 17 to be with her husband. She is now 22, he is 34, and I have recently found out she is pregnant and would like to try again to reach out to her. I'm not sure which way would be best. Original post. Hello, I'm 53 years old and I have a 22-year-old daughter. My husband and I have not spoken to her for 5 years when she left home. She ran away at 17, and when we located her, she was already 18 and living with her husband, who is 34 years old now. My husband completely cut her off, but I tried to maintain contact with her, but never got any responses from her. Eventually, she changed her phone number, and I didn't even have any way to contact her. Recently, my daughter has reached out to one of her cousins, and that cousin has told me that my daughter is expecting her first child. I would like to reach out to my daughter and repair our relationship. I would like to help her with her pregnancy and be part of my grandchild's life. I'm looking for advice on what you think the best way to contact her would be. My options are 1. Send her a message over social media. This seems very impersonal to me. 2. Send her a text message. I worry this will upset her because it would mean her cousin giving me her phone number. I don't want my daughter to see that as a betrayal of her trust. 3. Write her a letter. This seems like the most personal way for me without invading her privacy. Worst comes to worst, her cousin can take a picture of the letter and send it to her. I would just like others' opinions on what they think I should do. Thank you very much. I'm going to add in some pertinent background information. When my daughter ran away, my husband and I did not know she had left willingly to be with her boyfriend, the man she's married to now. We did not even know she was dating someone. We thought she was kidnapped. There was a search for her, and my husband and I exhausted our savings and retirement to search for her once the police stopped. Months later, we found out she was alive and well, and had gotten married to that man once she turned 18. My husband has not talked to her since, though I have reached out many times. Our relationship was very good until she turned 16, when I later found out she began dating her now husband. Around that time, she began sneaking out, skipping school, and lying, which we know was probably due to the influence of her husband. I do not know much about their relationship dynamic, other than she apparently admitted to my niece he's controlling. Now for the top advice before reading the update. A letter is least intrusive and most respectful. Other people have made excellent comments here about ways to contact her. I only wanted to add that your daughter has been groomed and is very probably in an awful relationship. What you're going to want to do, because you're loving parents, is get her the hell away from this man. But you can't. She will have to take the step on her own once she's ready. And it's a lot easier to do that when she knows she has backup and place to go. So if you really want to help her, make sure you don't alienate her and you stay in her life. Don't talk bad about her husband. Don't talk good about him either. Better to not mention him at all. If she does talk to you about him, try to let her come to realization on her own by biting your tongue and doing nothing but asking questions. Are you okay with that? How does that make you feel? Do you think that's what love is? Stuff like that. Remember, her husband is probably looking for a way to isolate her further. You're gonna have to rebuild that bond again. Do not be judgmental about their marriage/relationship at all, especially in the beginning. Edit/update. I asked my niece to reach out to my daughter about the two of us talking. My niece told me she said yes and gave me her phone number. She said to call her tomorrow after 9 o'clock. I'm very excited about this new development. And now for the update. I'm writing this quickly while I have a chance. I received a lot of wonderful advice. And for all of you who are well-meaning, I thank you very much. After I wrote my last post, I reached out to my niece to ask her if my daughter wanted to be contacted by me or not. My daughter says yes, and said for me to call her after 9 o'clock the next day, but made sure to say not to call her beforehand. At 9:15 the next day, I called my daughter. She immediately told me she needed money and a place to stay. She told me her husband had begun to get physical with her, and she was afraid for herself and her child. In summary, over the last few days, we have found out that my daughter's husband was emotionally and financially controlling her over the years. But my daughter was fooled by him enough that she thought it was okay or normal. She said that he would get mad at her if she talked about reaching out to her father and I, and would tell her that we were going to try to break them apart. It wasn't until she became pregnant and got worse that she realized she needed to get out. My husband and I immediately flew to go get her and bring her home. We have already talked to law enforcement in both her town and ours. Thank you, everyone. I know this is written rather hastily, so if there are any questions, I will answer them. I wish you and your daughter all the best. I'm glad she felt able to ask for help and leave her abuser. That takes great courage, especially after being groomed so young. Thank you very much. She was very brave, and we are very proud of her. What a great response from you. I am sure this was not what you expected and you went into protective mode immediately. My one piece of advice is, understand she may not open up about everything immediately. Let her know that's okay and your home is a safe space. And when she's ready, you're there for her if she wants to share. She would fare well with therapy, but what a damn champ for asking for help. She's a strong one. You raised her right. Congrats on being a grandparent, though on quite a different type of journey than you expected. My husband and I immediately flew to go get her and bring her home. What a relief it must be for her to find herself in a safe place. Please be patient with her. Her recovery will take time and will require therapy and a lot of support.